Hello everybody, my name is Doina Gavrilov and I will present to you my article for the second conference on innovations in law enforcement training and education. The article is entitled Technology Impact on Law Enforcement from More Dialogue to Learning Limitations. Nowadays, access to various means of communication raised the problem of law enforcement, because in a space with limited involvement of authorities in discussions regarding law, the law can be interpreted and applied differently than the lawmakers intended to. So what we want to say is that social media has become a new space for socialization and that it gives the possibility of very rapid dissemination of information and respectively the socialization of law. But that this depends on the presence of legislative authorities and the governance in this new space for management, social dialogue, and ensuring the correct understanding and application of the law. This being said, we focus at first on the definition of social media. Obar and Wildman defined social media in 2015 as a web, internet-based applications with user-generated content and user-specific profiles designed and maintained by a social media service with the intention to facilitate the development of social networks online by connecting a profile with those of other individuals and/or groups. In the same line, Howard and Parks in 2012 say that social media is about the tools that allow it to exist as a space for communication, all the content and information published on the social networks, and the actors who disseminate and consume information. Also, we have to say that there are some less technical definitions. For example, Boyd and Ellison define social media as a relationship initiation often between strangers. Shoemaker et al. Define social media as a bunch of tools that help us convey the meaning of concepts. Kaplan and Heinlein in 2010 defined social media as a tool that supports socialization, information exchange, and knowledge transfer. And Karen Heiss define it as a space for communication dependent on internet-based tools. And considering this, we focus further on a mixed theoretical approach to law. For example, the social constructionists say that law is a social construct and an institution, represented by legal language, codes of law, theories of jurisprudence, and finally the ultimate legitimations of the institution and its norms in ethical, religious, or mythological system of thoughts. In the same vein, Giudice argued that law is an institution and a social construct, and because it is a social construct, Tamanaha argued that it cannot be stable. It changes under the influence of economic, political, cultural factors, and others. For this reason, socialization is a central tool in formulating, settling, and perpetuating a social reality. A bit different, but not contradictory, is the institutionalist approach to law. For example, the institutionalists argue that laws are sets of rules that constrain the behavior of all actors, including the state power and parties. They are the power and present a source of power. At an in-depth analysis, law as institutions are organizational arrangements, patterns of behaviors and rules, compliance procedures, operating practices, and routines that shape the human conduct in different situations. It is that we see law as a set of rules, procedures, routines, and social practices whose institutionalization was possible only with the help of communication and socialization. Only after the social negotiation of goals, problems, and social trends, laws appeared as solutions to problems, as guides for a better life, and as protocols to reach a common social interest. It is in this context that we draw a connection between law and social media, when we recognize that it is for its simple existence, law needs communication. So we focus on the link between social media and law enforcement. The power of social media as a tool for law enforcement has been understood since society has embraced social media as a new space and tool for communication, interaction, and performance of daily tasks. In this light, Mathiescu et al. In 2015 showed that law enforcement agencies started to use social media for research to possibly connect causes, evidence, and obtain warrants. It is in this way that lately the law enforcement authorities managed to combat illegal activities, to draw links between different individuals and drug traffickers, and contribute to a safe social environment. And of course, this way of using social media is great, but In this study, we focus on a preventive approach, namely on enforcing law through law dissemination, negotiation, and socialization on social media, which is meant to disseminate the newest modifications of laws, the transmission of the real meaning of the law, and to encourage the law application through continuous learning of law meaning. So we focus on the link between social media and law dissemination. First of all, we focus on how is seen the social media, and we observe that it is described as a new way of communication. It is also seen as a space that allows social interaction to take place, but by its nature, it also diversifies social interaction since it puts at people's disposal more ways of expression, interaction, and transmission of information. Cenerol argued that social media has two types of interaction, opinion or preference sharing, and each requires a specific communication strategy. And in this context, Harrington Boyd observes that the development of law requires socialization based on the principles of jurisprudence. Now, this being said, the lack of communication leaves room for different interpretation of the law by each individual who pass it through the filters of personal knowledge and life experience and prevent its right application. Starting from this, we highlight the importance of using the social media tools for law dissemination and enforcement. But also in this context, we recognize the importance of lawmaking and governance institutions' presence in the social media as regulators of the social dialogue in the process of negotiating law meanings. Considering this, we focus on analyzing the actual participation of lawmaking and governance institutions from Romania in the dissemination, negotiation, and socialization of law on social media. This is meant to help us identify an institutional behavioral pattern regarding the use of social media, the opportunities of using social media, and the reactions of the public regarding the institutional posts. So what we do, we follow the Facebook activity of these institutions from January 1st until September 1st, 2023, of the Chamber of Deputies, the Senate, the Presidential Administration, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Ministry of Investments and European Projects, the Ministry of Health, and the Competition Council. Following the social media screening and context analysis, we identify 9 types of posts shared by the studied institutions. We find posts based on events, national holidays, exhibitions, meetings, decisions and information, internship and jobs, delegations and international affairs, interviews, press declarations, and laws. Since we are concerned about the impact of social media use on the law dissemination, negotiation, and enforcement, we count the posts of each institution during this year and analyze how many refer to law. And what we find is this. The second chamber of the parliament, the Senate doesn't even have an official Facebook page, as well as the Ministry of Justice, when in fact they are the crucial institutions in the formulation and defense of the law. Then, each institution sees social media as a tool for increasing social trust in itself and focus mostly on showing their work on Facebook page instead of promoting the law. And also we find that most posts are of an informative nature and highlight the results of some projects, international visits, announcements, and only in some cases the information was designated to explain some rules, for example, the traffic rules, or of work in the case of Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Health. For example, in the case of Ministry of Health, they make reference to new regulations that impact the work of healthcare employees, and similarly the Ministry of Education posts make reference to new laws changing the school's curricula and teaching methods. In both cases, the post presents the newness and translates from the judicial language to the people what the new regulations would change. We also focus in this study on analyzing the percentage of posts referring to law, and we see the following. The biggest reference to law was made by the Chamber of Deputies, as it was expected. And the next institution is the Ministry of Education, followed by the Ministry of Health. But there is a difference at the level of socializing space. In spite of the fact that the Chamber of Deputies made the most references to law, the problem is, however, that there is no dialogue and negotiation on the Chamber of Deputies page. We see that most comments are inappropriate and a way to vent social frustrations. A totally different example is the activity of the users on the page of the Ministry of Education, where first of all we see fewer fake accounts, the public shows interest in participating in public consultations, the nature of the comments is different, oriented constructively, not destructively, with very few exceptions, of course. Now, starting from the theoretical premises, we understood that social media is a key tool that can be used for the dissemination of the law and for enforcing its application through soft methods, namely through socialization and the negotiation of law meanings. It is in this context that we realize the importance of state institutions' presence on social media as official institutions capable of managing social dialogue and disseminating, interpreting, and conveying the meaning of the law to society. However, we find that the legislative and governance institutions use social media rather as tools for increasing social trust in their own institution and display the results of their work focusing very little on the law. In the same line, the institutions seem reluctant to use this tool for managing social dialogue and information, although the society shows through their reactions to the post that it is interested in institutions' presence on social networks in order to take the meanings of the law directly from the institutions that participate in the formulation of the laws and who are the most able to interpret the law. And finally, we realize that law socialization through social media could be an amazing tool for law enforcement if the state institutions would use it for such a purpose. This being said, thank you for attention. I wait for your comments and recommendations.